Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of ThinkTank Thursday. I'm Candy Kelly, excited to be spending this time with you guys. Want to show some love to my 2023 Think Tank sponsors, SimNots, Redemption Plus, Roller, Betson, and Delta Strike. We love our sponsors and are so grateful that they allow us to bring these episodes to you guys each and every week. On Thursdays, Trainertainment likes to take a little bit of time away from the doing and spend some time thinking about our business. And I've been very excited this year because I've focused a little bit more on owner-operators who are doing the same jobs that you guys are doing and getting them to share their insight. And this week, we have Kyle Allison with us, who is from Allison's Fun Incorporated. That's his family business. And they have owned, they specialized in company parties and group events for a long time. Then they had Andy's Alligators, which was in Norman, Oklahoma, and now he owns Altitude 1291, which is kind of what we focus on a bit in this conversation. He is also, if you've been to IAPA, he has been very involved and has sat on boards and helped the industry and is always willing to share. And today he shares a bit with us. So I'm super excited to jump into this interview with you guys this week. Welcome, Kyle, to Think Tank Thursday. How are you today?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. This is your first time on Think Tank. You haven't even been interviewed by Beth when she was the host, were you?
I haven't. No, it was my first time.
I've had you on snippets where we've asked the questions at trade shows and put those collaboration ones together, but I'm excited to have you as an actual guest. So before we jump into questions and stuff, just tell people who you are, kind of what your background, your family's been involved in this industry for such a long time, and then what led you to this industry?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Kyle Allison. I own Altitude 1291 in Midwest City, Oklahoma. We're a suburb of Oklahoma City. So just about 15 minutes from downtown Oklahoma City is where our facility is located. So what led me to the industry is I kind of grew up in the industry, not directly in family entertainment centers, but in kind of hospitality. My family, we own several different companies and they're all in that kind of hospitality centric area. And my dad started a corporate events company about 30 years ago now. So I was just a youngin', and he started off with a single moon bounce, and now we have a couple hundred moon bounces, inflatables, I guess you would say, not just moon bounces anymore. But
it used to all be called moon bounces, and then over time the terminology changed.
yeah, and they've grown from where they used to weigh 200 pounds. Now we have some that weigh 2,000 pounds, and we have carnival rides, tents, tables, chairs. We're a full service corporate event production company, and that company has grown over the last 30 years. And we have two locations, one here in Oklahoma City and then one in Wichita, Kansas, and kind of serve the South Central United States region. But so I grew up in that business. When I was in college, my parents actually started our first family entertainment center, Andy Alligators Fun Park, which some people may be familiar with. And that operated until COVID. And it was an indoor-outdoor park with a water park was a large portion. So it was heavily impacted by COVID. And the highway actually is expanding that area. So the timing was good and bad, I guess you would say. But
they wanted your land.
Yeah, so that facility is becoming a part of the highway expansion. And at the same time, about 3 months before COVID hit, we opened our newest facility, Altitude 1291, and we've been operating that since then.
So at no point were you rebellious and you're like, no, I'm doing something else with my life?
Oh, I was a little bit. My family, pretty much everyone in my family went to OU here in Norman. And I decided when I was a senior in high school to move to Denver, Colorado. So when I graduated high school, I moved to Colorado and went to school there, and still worked in the hospitality business. Imagine that. I worked in event sales at the local arena there, Pepsi Center at the time, and worked the corporate lifestyle, working for a large company. And I realized that I really did enjoy working with my family in small business. And so that's what led me to come back after graduation to rejoin the family company.
And I'm sure they were thrilled. So for those who are not, I know a lot of people are probably familiar with Andy Alligators, but for those who may not be as familiar with Altitude 1291, tell its story, attractions, the layout, kind of who it caters to, all of that.
Yeah, so we were looking for an all indoor concept, and it's about 30,000 square feet. So our idea behind that concept is to be able to build something that can be in kind of second tier markets or markets that already have a larger, big box FEC. And so this location was perfect. There was the city of Midwest City was redeveloping a entertainment district, kind of entertainment and retail area, and so we worked with them to put in this facility. And there's also a movie theater next to us and a lot of new retail. So it was the perfect time for that community to grow and for us to build that. So we have 12 lanes of bowling, um, full restaurant and bar, laser tag, arcade, rock wall, and bumper cars. So a little bit, and VR. So, and we have
As
VR.
I say, do you ever feel like on the spot, like, oh my gosh, I own this place. What if I forget one of the
I
attractions?
know. No, it is true. I forget all the different stuff because we packed a lot in a small area, and the idea was is kind of pack a lot in a small area, and then see what worked and remove what was needed. And as of right now, we still have everything we opened with, but we are looking at what's the next step. We've been open 3 years. What needs to be done? Is our attraction needs to be pulled out, a new one added, or do we just add more arcade space? I mean, as people know, arcades games have gotten bigger, and
Oh
so
yeah.
we need more space in the arcade as well.
I know. I think when I first started talking to people about arcades, it was like something like you needed 50 to 55 square feet per arcade was like the average that they would like do it. Now I think it's got to 65 square feet is kind of the average they use when they're looking at planning. Now, obviously, it changes once you choose the games, but that's the average they go off of.
Yeah, and one thing that I will mention, everyone always wants to ask about the story and the name behind Altitude 1291 is Tinker Air Force Base is just about a mile away from our facility. Midwest City is a heavy Air Force community. Tinker Air Force Base is now, I think, the largest Air Force base in the U.S. And it's so we wanted to build something that was kind of, not military, but very aerospace and that's kind of the theme we went after. So it's an aerospace driven facility theme, but not heavily themed. It has more of your metals and your blues and your grays. And then the name just came from that's the altitude of Tinker Air Force Base. So it made
Oh,
it.
it is. Okay.
So yeah, so it's the altitude of Tinker Air Force Base is 1,291 feet, and so it kind of ties into that aerospace theme, and it worked out well and kind of tells the story of the local community as well.
Very cool way to pay homage to the local story around you. Um, well, this year on Think Tank, I've really been concentrating on bringing on owners and operators in to be interviewed to talk about that side. We spent a lot of time for a long time talking to suppliers and vendors and experts, quote unquote. But who is a better expert than the people who are actually doing the work all the time? And so, thank you for agreeing to come on for that. But I do want to let's jump in and ask, what makes you the most excited about what you do?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty easy for me, and that's being around the guests and being in the action when it's busy. Um, I love it. I love working during a busy event. I love being there when we're packed. That's also been the hardest thing for me as we've grown. And I also, help out with our other companies that we own is I have to spend a lot of time in the office now, a lot of time behind the computer working on, financials or spreadsheets or marketing, stuff like that. And I really miss getting out there with the guests. And so I still work a lot of Saturdays. I love being there on Saturday night when it's busy and jumping behind the bar, helping or cooking in the kitchen when I have to. Just doing whatever I can because I love being there when just that everything's going hot, going hard, and everyone's happy. Customers are happy. It makes me happy to see them having fun.
I also love to hear that you know how to do those things. There are, in all industries, not just ours specifically, but lots of business owners who like if they had to cook in the kitchen, they would be like almost more of a hindrance than a help in any way. And
My
so it's
staff
also
may agree with you, but yeah. But there's been times. I mean, there is a interesting. I think there's a picture on Facebook somewhere of my dad and I when it was a busy Saturday and we had no cook, so they all called in sick, and there I was. It was father son bonding time in the kitchen, and we cooked for the shift, and it was pretty fun. We had a good time.
um, that's awesome. And I'm sure did your family make you work your way up? How did that work when you decided you wanted to come back from Denver, Colorado and rejoin? What was that progression to altitude 1290?
Yeah, I had always been kind of, through my high school and even middle school and younger years, always worked kind of out on the event field, out in the field working. And so when I came back, my degree was in sports and entertainment management, but basically it was a business degree with a little tag on it that said you could work in entertainment. But I liked sales and marketing side of things. And so that's where I really started was, kind of leading our sales and marketing team when I got back. And that was a lot of fun. And then just as things grew, I kind of stepped more into the, operations management side of it. So not just the sales and marketing. So, I've learned a lot. My dad still comes to work every day, pretty much every day. And so we have a lot of fun and still get to work with him every day and learn about stuff. My wife works with us now too. So it's a truly family ran business.
The next generation is excited to stay with the business.
Yeah, my kids are 5 and 8, so they still haven't quite figured it all out yet of what's going on.
Like, this is gonna be mine.
Yeah, but it's like when we go to a different arcade and they run up the skee ball lane. I'm like, no, you can't do that here. We don't know this place. We don't, no, you can. Well, you let me do it at your work. I'm like, well, yeah, we don't own this one. Let's not do that.
I'm okay if I have to pay for it there. I bought it initially.
Yeah.
So you've done lots of the different roles and positions. So I'm sure you've had some wins and some losses. So is there any like failure or something that was more difficult or an obstacle that sticks out to you that you've learned the most from?
Yeah, kind of my challenges usually are around like our development projects or something we're working on. And when we built the our newest entertainment center, Altitude 1291, and it was a failure at the time, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise type deal. But it was a huge challenge that we thought we had the banking and the financing secured, and then at the last minute that bank kind of pulled it out from under us. Couldn't get it over the finish line. And so that was a hard time, but I knew to just never give up. And I literally put in back of my car, put in all my marketing materials and everything we were doing, and I went around to banks after banks of people I knew. I had a good relationship in the community with a lot of bankers, and so just went out and started telling my story of what we were doing, what we were going to do. I had kind of jumped the gun a little bit, and we had already began some construction and some pieces that probably we should not have done, because then people were, hey, we've done this work and we need money, and you don't have any money because you don't have your bank financing when you should have. And so making those hard calls of like, hey, I'm going to pay you, but it's going to be a little while, but don't do any more work on this until I can get you paid. So that's probably where some of those hard challenges that happened early on in the process.
Do you think having to go through that made you more passionate about the project because you had to tell the story and over and over again to get different bankers and stuff? Do you think that it instilled a higher level of passion for you?
Yeah, it did, and I think that it is, if you have just wins all the time, then I mean it's not easy, but if you have wins all the time, it doesn't. Sometimes it gets to your ego too fast, and to kind of proverbially lose everything at that point of the project was tough, but it probably made me a harder worker, and it made me work on things harder. I mean, I literally was like sitting in the parking lot of a grocery store, eating a sandwich that I bought in the deli, and I saw a bank across the street, and I said, hey, I know Matt who runs that bank. And I literally put down my sandwich, drove across the street, pulled in the parking lot, walked into his office, said, hey, can I talk to you about a project I got going? And told him what we were doing. And they're now our bank that financed the project and has been with us on other projects now as well. So, it just one
Where
of those
the
things.
blessings of the skies came from.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that, people are going to tell you no, and you just got to keep asking. And it's going to be the weirdest time when, like, I literally tell people I was literally sitting in the parking lot, of a grocery store when the light bulb went off and said, I'm going across the street and asking them for money, and it worked. So, hey.
Good thing you were hungry at that point. It changed
I know.
your trajectory.
I have to admit that I also eat lunch every once in a while at the deli counter at the grocery store, but it's good.
So you've been around or in this industry for such a long time. If someone was interested in entering the industry, what is that one piece of advice that you find yourself giving the most?
Yeah, the cool thing about our industry is it is unique. And so all of us are different. There's really not, it's not like we're not like a retail store. When you walk into a grocery store, they sell groceries. Every one of them sells groceries, maybe a little different variety, but they all do the same. When you go into an FEC, I mean, you've been into hundreds of them as well. They're all different. And so you really got to pick what you want to be, but you don't know what you want to be until you go visit, hundreds of attractions, go into everything you can think of, and not just FECs. Even if you want to build, you may start thinking you want to build a trampoline park, but by the end of the time, all of a sudden, no, you decided I'm building an FEC that has bowling and laser tag arcade. So you really got to figure it out, and then, talk to professionals, talk to people in the industry. We've all made lots of mistakes, and so we can tell you what we've done, what we've done right, what we've done wrong. Most everyone I've met in this industry shares. And so I think getting to know operators is probably the number one thing you can do, to be successful, is just get out there and, find out what people are doing, and, what they think is right. Because when I show people around my place, I can show them all the great things we're doing, and then I try to show them all the bad stuff we're doing as well, so they don't do it.
After building Altitude 1291, is there something that you look at now and you're like, man, I wish I would have built that just a little bit differently?
Yeah, I think the same as like when you build a house, after you walk the building and you've worked in it for hours upon hours, and you're like, why did we do it this way? And some things like, and we can't move it, like bathrooms, you can't move those. You can move a closet or add a closet, you can put a soda machine in another spot or move a soda machine, but there's certain things in the layout of a building that once it's built, you can't move. Kitchen. And so, and also you don't know, with this concept, it was the first one of that. So we didn't really know volume. We didn't know, how things were going to work out. And so obviously now when we build additional locations, we'll have, a little more thought into it based on how we learned. And what works for one facility here in Oklahoma City may be completely different than a facility in, say, Connecticut, because of climate or guests or, layout. So it is tough because you see all these great ideas when you're traveling, and then you got to bring it to life in your place, and something's not going to be right in the end, but it's just part of the
Yeah.
game.
So you said like 30 years. So you've seen like the trajectory of this industry for such a long time. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, none of us do, but what do you see as the future of this industry? What do you think will actually come to light and kind of bubble up to the surface in the next 10 years?
I will admit I've not been a great, predictor of the industry. Several things that I thought would die quicker didn't die as quick as I thought they would, and some things did. Different segments of our industry. I think the thing that we've learned is that, through different recessions, through the financial recession and then the COVID, recession, we've learned that people still love entertainment, and people love taking their family out, and they'll, do whatever they need to do to have fun with their families. So I see us always being centered around that in the future, a family environment. Do I think, can arcade games get any bigger and more expensive? Geez, I don't know, because they already are. Talk about back in the day when we paid $6,000 for an arcade game, and now we're paying $26,000, and now they are more advanced and bigger and unique.
Some were just taller though. I remember like the first monster drops we had in my location, like it was just a normal height, and now monster drops go like all the way up to the ceiling.
And so that's the things that I think, won't change, is the fact that we're all going to gather around and have fun with our families. I think that the technology component, there's going to be, VR has really stayed, I think, longer than I even thought it would. And so I think we're going to I hope we see more around that, with, more entertainment and maybe more licensing around that. When you travel, I had the opportunity when I was, on the board for IAPA, to travel and go to, many different countries and see FECs and how different they are. And one of the big differences that I've seen in the US is we're not as, IP based. We're not as, connected with licenses and such. And so, when you go overseas, you see a lot more of that. And so, we're seeing that more and more here in the US. I see more games are coming out with licensing on them. But I see maybe that's more of a tradition we'll see.
I've also noticed some trends with escape rooms having a connection to like a movie that's coming out or whatever, and having that IP as its theming for some escape rooms too.
So I think maybe we'll see more of that. It just adds another cost to it when you know no longer, like you said, it's a monster drop, but it's the I don't know, the Superman monster drop. I don't know, but it adds cost to it. But people love that. I mean, I always tell the story of ices. We can sell a ton of ices. And one time I got mad at icy and I pulled all the machines out and we put in just slushies and the cells just tanked because it didn't have that icy name on it. So we'd have the darn icy machines back again. But it's just the name sells on a lot of these products. And I think we'll see more of that move into the US over the next few years.
Here in Georgia, we have something called alligator ice, which is similar to icy. That's what you should have sold at the other places, alligator
Yeah,
ice.
I've had alligator ice. I like it because it's more like a frosty instead of more of a fluffy.
Yeah.
But I do like alligator ice.
I know. And it doesn't even matter what flavor icy you have because kids only know it by color. They have no idea what flavor
Blue, red, blue,
blue.
red.
That is it. Yeah, technology also, I hope that we see more technology working together to make it more efficient to operate family entertainments. How many systems do you have running Altitude 1291?
Oh, geez. Yeah, that frustrates me every time I hear about it. Point of sale systems, just like, man, I wish there was one catch all for everything. And it's, in this industry, everyone wants to know your opinion of point of sale equipment. And there's not one that's perfect. They all have their challenges. We have our main POS system. We have a online ticketing system. We have our system that runs all of our groups. Then we luckily do now have online booking for the bowling lanes integrated with the point of sale software, so that's good. What else do we have? I think that's it. But we do have, I think, 3 systems or 4 systems that you got to reconcile.
That's what I'm hoping, like, for that. There just is a more ease, and there's some that are coming out that are trying to be more all-in-one, and there's others that did a lot of good work in the during the pandemic to increase what they could offer. But you're right, they all have their challenges. Nothing's perfect. But I love the history of why that's the way it is, because it means this industry was started mom and pop, local communities who had grit and scrap, and they were like, oh, I need a ring in sales. Okay, I'll get a cash register.
Yeah.
Oh, I need something to put like party information in. Okay, then someone builds a module that does that and sells it alone. Oh, I need to keep up with people, the clients that I have. Okay, I'll have this over here. I want arcade games, so I have the system here. I love that because this whole industry is built on the backs of small business, mom, pop, this community needs it, let me provide it. And I love that history, but it can be frustrating to reconcile yourselves at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that the want that everyone wants to make changes and make this technology better is always great, because that's just going to drive more innovation, and that'll help. But in all though, I tell people that we're not a huge industry. The FEC industry is not huge. We're not like the restaurant industry where there's they obviously can develop a lot faster there because they have a lot more customers. And so, I think that's one of the reasons we don't have the perfect system, is there's, only so many FECs, small attractions out in the US that could purchase the software.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on within the businesses that you guys operate. So what's your favorite productivity hack? How do you get what you get done?
My favorite productivity hack, I would say, would be my calendar. I mean, there's nothing like a hack. It's not very hack. It's just I'm very
digital calendar.
Yeah, I'm digital. Yeah, I am digital. I still like a good old fashioned to-do list on paper every once in a while, but I'm pretty much digital. And I've also embraced the whole Zoom thing, even post COVID. We have Zoom meetings. I may have to jump on a meeting while I'm in the car driving and listen to it. That's good. So it allows us to be a little more flexible with meetings, especially now as we've grown. And maybe I want to be at a meeting, but I don't need to be there. And so why do I hold up everyone else and say, oh no, you guys can't meet because I'm out of town? Or, you know, you guys meet and I'll jump on and listen. And if I need to be there, I can be there. So I've embraced kind of the more digital office concept more and more over the last couple of years.
So are you I block everything on my calendar, so down to I need to, take lunch and all of that stuff, and I need like closeout time, or are you just
I'd say I'm probably like a step below that. I don't block out everything, but I do, like, even if I know I need to do something that day, if it's on my to-do list, I'll go ahead and put it on my calendar. It's not a meeting, but it's like if I know I have to get the marketing piece ready for this promotion, it's gonna be on my calendar. And I've also, with being now and geographically, we have multiple locations around in all our businesses. So one of the things we own 3 kids hair care salons, 3 kids hair salons.
very
And
cool?
they're in 3 different suburbs here in Oklahoma City. And so, I may be asked to be at a meeting in basically 5 different places. And so I really try to manage my calendar where I'm going to be geographically in the same area for a day or even a half day,
So
just to
anything you gotta take care of in that area.
not try to run around. I've tried that before, and just driving around all the time, just killing your schedule. But being in the car, going from meeting to meeting is for me is very frustrating.
And then I'm sure at the end of the week you're like, I really feel like I was constantly going, but what did I actually get done at the end of this week?
Though there's many times that I get home at night and I'm like, wow, I didn't get anything done today, but I did. It's just,
Wasn't what the original plan was. So when you were 8 years old, is this what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I would say a version of it. I was, obsessed with Disney growing up, so I thought I would probably go in more in the theme park realm, but I think that was because the company was smaller at the time, and so I didn't know like this was going to be what I wanted to do. And I think because of that, you'll also notice in a lot of our companies, I like the idea of kind of the think big idea. I don't When I look for ideas, yes, I look at other FECs, but more than ever, I look at what are the big parks doing. When I go to IAPA in November, I'm not just going to the FEC sessions. Actually, most of the time I'm not at the FEC sessions. I'm going to the sessions that are being put on by the big parks and the big attractions, because I feel like that's where you can learn to level up to the next level. And food and beverage operations, traditionally FECs have not had good food and beverage operations. So what I've done is I've always kind of studied and wanted to do what an actual restaurant is doing or what they're doing at the big parks. So, I go to the restaurant show. I go to I try to go to that kind of stuff. All of our cost controls in college, I took a food and beverage cost controls class because I knew that's what I wanted to do, was elevate that food aspect. And that's kind of, that's kind of my thought in that.
When I was in operations and was like looking for what the new trends were going to be in food and beverage, if there was ever a session that was put on by anyone who did anything with the big state fairs, I always went to that, because there's a lot of food trends that start in state fairs and then make their way into like family entertainment centers or the parks or different places like that. But they start in those state fairs. So I used to always go to that to be like, what are they making food wise that's like fun and different?
And I would say, I mean, food is like a huge part of our business now. And it should be at every FEC. That should be, and I feel like if there's one area where FECs fail at most, it's in food and beverage. And it's hard and it's the lowest margin, but you got to have it. If you don't have it, then people are going to be, there's not going to stay as long as they need to stay at your facility. So I feel like that probably is an industry where we could improve the most, would be in that F&B area.
Very interesting. All right. Thank you. We're coming to the end of our time, but everyone who comes on Think Tank gets asked a signature question. Are you ready?
Sure.
You gotta look ready. What do you do on a consistent basis to grow yourself? You've heard your entertainment site for years. We're all obsessed with growing people so that you can grow your business. So we like to ask people what they are doing to grow themselves.
Sure. Mine is pretty easy, and people who know me in the industry know that I try to go to as many events, many industry functions as possible, not just the fun stuff, but go to education. I think that, learning, the way you can learn in this industry is learning from others. I mentioned it earlier in our talk. And when I'm at these conferences, I'm talking to people, I'm visiting locations. That's where I feel that I learn the most. And so that's what helps grow me and helps me learn, is to meet with those other owners and not just ask about, hey, what's your best game right now? It's really about, oh, that's cool. Okay, now how did you do that in the back office? Or what did you have to do to make that happen? Oh geez, we know what kind of processes you put in place. And so that's where I kind of learn, I grow as a business owner and as a person. Is, sometimes I even have those, when you get to know people in the industry, you get to know their owners, you sit down and you're having a beer and you say, dude, how do you juggle all this? Or how do you do this? And those kind of talks are always great, because you can talk to people who are doing what you're doing, but have been doing it longer or doing it better, and figure out how to grow. And that's probably where I learn the most, is from others. And so for me, it's spending the time and money, which are both very valuable right now, to get out to visit other conferences and trade shows and that kind of stuff.
Sure, everyone, or at least most, are aware of the big three. You've got IAAPA, you've got Amusement Expo, and you got Bowl Expo. If there is one that you would suggest that someone should put on their list to definitely try to attend that is not one of the big three, what would you suggest?
It's not one of the big three. I feel like the big three are the big three, and that's the problem, is they're big. And so sometimes I get the most from the smaller stuff. And so that's going to be more of the IAAPA regional events, like the Leadership Conference, which I think now was the Trade Summit this year, North American Trade Summit, going to, the meetups that the AMOA group puts together, going to those events where it's not thousands of people, it's maybe a couple hundred, because then you can connect better and get to know people. And so, also, nightclub and bar show is always good if you're in the food and beverage space. Any of the restaurant association shows are great. What else? There's some marketing conferences too that some of our local marketing agency people put on, that it's just fun to go to. Some of it's not relevant to us, but a lot of it is, how can we make it relevant to us?
That's the good thing about growth. There's not a cap on it. There's always more that we can learn and get better at. Well, thank you, Kyle, for your time. If people want to learn more about Altitude 1291, or just want to connect with you, found interest in one of the stories you were telling and have more questions, where would you send them to connect with you and learn more?
Sure. Yeah, you can go visit, any of our digital spaces via our website or Facebook. You can always find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kyle Allison. It's pretty easy to search me. I'm sure you can find me. And then my email, you can always email me. It's kyle@allisonsfuninc.com. So allisonsfuninc.com, and reach out. And hopefully I'll see you at a trade show or an event here in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time. Again, I want to thank Kyle for taking time out of his busy day. It sounds like they have a lot going on over at his family's company, Allison's Fun Incorporated, and taking a bit of time to share with us some of the insight that he has gained from all of his years in the industry. So that was super awesome of him. So thank you again to Kyle. Thank you to all of you for choosing to spend this time with us on this episode. And thank you again to my 2023 Think Tank sponsors. If you have an idea for Think Tank, want to be a guest, or would like to sponsor, you can email me, candy@trainertainment.net. And if you're interested in coaching and training that produces results, fun training, serious results, and then you can also reach out to me and I'll happily chat with you about that as well. I hope you guys all have an awesome week, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Introducing Mobile Wallet, the next gen in cashless fueled by Embed. Your virtual game card is added to the mobile wallet with no app download required. Just scan the QR code, then create your account in the mobile portal. Guests can do a quick reload of their game cards anytime, anywhere without leaving the game. They can also skip the kiosk and cashier lines, and there's no need for a balance check machine. With advanced security and encrypted tech, Embed's mobile wallet is the only FEC business solution compliant and approved by both Google and Apple.